So Congress is set to come back Tuesday after more than a month on recess, a recess that, don't forget, was called early because Republicans were too afraid to vote on a resolution demanding the release of the Epstein files. Speaker Mike Johnson hoped that by the time they came back, the whole Epstein matter would just go away, be old news. But that hasn't exactly panned out, because next week, Democrats and a handful of Republican allies will be ensuring that the Epstein story remains front and center. On Wednesday, Congressman Ro Khanna and Republican Thomas Massie will host a press conference featuring several survivors of Epstein and Maxwell's abuse. Those survivors plan to tell their stories, some for the first time in public, and will urge Congress to pass the bipartisan resolution to push the DOJ to release the files. And Democrats will press for more subpoenas, following the latest one issued by the House Oversight Committee to the Epstein estate for the birthday book that repeatedly bears Trump's signature. My colleague Chris Hayes spoke with Congressman Robert Garcia, the ranking Democrat on the committee, earlier this evening, where he broke some news about that birthday book.
We finally got word from the Epstein estate. They're going to be providing the actual Epstein book, that famous book where that note that Donald Trump drew and doodled to Jeffrey Epstein, his so-called best friend of 10 to 15 years.
So that's some news. Joining us now is Congressman Jared Moskowitz, a Democrat from Florida. Congressman, thank you for being here with me. So Congress is back next week. I mean, as I just noted, the story of the Epstein files is really, to me, it's about what Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell did to the victims. They're going to be speaking out next week at a press conference, as I just mentioned. What impact do you hope their stories will have?
Well, obviously, look, victims of sexual abuse, their stories are powerful. They're their stories, and no one should politicize them. Let the American people hear from the victims and let them tell their truth. And we'll see how the American people digest it. Look, Democrats are going to continue to remain focused on this. Not just this, we'll remain focused on this and affordability, which I think is the number one issue for the American people. But we also can't, stay focused on 20 things that Trump has done in the last 20 minutes. Otherwise, none of the messages that we want to get through will resonate. But there are lots of questions, right? We went on break and all of a sudden Trump's former attorney went to the jail and interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell, right? Created a transcript, which then got released. She then got transferred to a different facility. I noticed when that happened, Jen, that the leaks to the newspapers stopped. And so there are lots of questions here. And of course, James Comer says, most transparent administration in American history. They've released 33,000 pages of information. 97% of that information was already public. My dear friend James would know that. He reads on a 7th grade level. But, nothing that has happened, over the last couple of weeks is to get to the truth. It is literally just to try to get the American people off of this issue. Everything you have seen and watched, the show that has been going on, troops in D.C., right? The stuff going on with Putin, everything you've seen to fill your TV screen, everything they've done is to try to get you focused off of the Epstein issue.
I could not agree with you more. And that's why it's so interesting when Congress comes back. Clearly, there's going to be a lot of pushes on this. One of the things that's been sort of interesting, Comer was a little slow to move forward with the subpoenas, at least in my view. You may or may not agree. He obviously supported them. But
no, that's actually his regular, Jen, that's actually his regular speed. He's just a little slow in general. So.
Oh, well, okay. There you go. I wasn't even saying that, but I'll let you say it. Okay. What I was going to ask you about is he didn't include Alex Acosta, who's obviously a key player here, but he then did include him. And now there's going to be a transcribed interview with Alex Acosta happening in September. What questions do you hope he answers? What do you think we could learn from that?
Well, we got to ask about the sweetheart deal. Why did he get a sweetheart deal? Who called him? Did he ever speak to anyone? Was he ever directed? We got to get those questions. I also think they need to bring in Christopher Wray. I've heard that Christopher Wray has seen what's in those files. And so I find it interesting that they've not brought in the former FBI director who had access to these files for a long period of time. There's other people that we could be bringing in rather than the folks that Comer is bringing in. He's bringing in, former elected officials. Comer wants to know, why he's plugged in the auto pen into the wall, but the auto pen won't speak to him. And so, if we really want to get to the bottom of this, Alex Acosta is actually a good witness to bring in, but also Chairman Comer should have a hearing. Why is he doing all of this in the basement of a building, with no TV cameras? Is he going to have a hearing? Is he going to bring any of these folks to a hearing to get asked questions? The American people can see it. Or is he just going to issue his own one-sided report? I mean, the American people want transparency. He should have a hearing. What's he afraid of?
Well, it's a good question. I hope you keep asking it next week. Okay, let me ask you another piece, because you're right. I mean, costs and the economy is what is on the minds of people across the country. We got news earlier this evening that a federal court has declared most of President Trump's tariffs to be unconstitutional, but has allowed them to stay in place for now. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. But what's your take on that?
Well, obviously, this has been a big debate, whether the tariff policy was reserved for Congress and whether the president has the ability to do these sweeping tariffs, right? Most of Congress has maintained that this power is with the legislative branch. And so this ruling that came out is now paused until October 14th. The Supreme Court is going to weigh in. And Jen, this will be another test to see if the Supreme Court is going to continue to make the president all powerful and continue to erode power away from the legislative branch or away from other institutions and agencies.